So yeah, I'm literally I'm here because a good friend of mine asked me to come up and have a conversation with you. I'm a Christian apologist. She said that you're pretty well educated and thought it'd be an interesting conversation.
Certainly would be interesting. Is your friend a believer or not?
Yes, we both are.
Cool. So,
Yeah, we're both
you gave
biblical
me
Christians.
sure. So you gave me the background information. So I guess I would start out with the question: is what would be like a good argument or evidence for the Christian God being real?
Well, so can we pause on that? Because I wanted to actually talk about the prompt first, if that's okay.
Sure. I mean, I figure that is part of the prompt, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, so the prompt is your God is imaginary, prove me wrong. And that's always bizarre to me when I see something because you see people like go to college campuses and make a claim and then say prove me wrong. Like immediately that shouts out to me like shifting the burden of proof. So if you're
So
saying my God is
can you prove me wrong?
imaginary, well, hold on. What I'm saying is if you're starting with a claim your God is imaginary, don't you have the burden of proof?
We both have burdens of proof here. So my claim is that you can imagine your God and nothing more. Your God seems to exist in your head, and you can't demonstrate your God to exist outside of your head.
Okay, can you prove that?
Yeah, because you can't do it. So the fact that you can't prove your God to exist outside of your head demonstrates that your God only exists inside your head.
So are you referring to objective truth?
No, I'm suggesting that the claim I'm making is that your God can only be proven as far as your imagination.
Right, and what led you to that conclusion is what I'm asking.
That you can't
Like you
prove
and I,
that
you
you
and I
can't
personally
prove your
never had a
God to
conversation.
exist outside of your head, which is why rather than actually giving an argument or evidence for your God existing, you're trying to get out of it and you're trying to burden shift.
But you and I have never had a conversation, so how could you like say that?
Well, go ahead and try it then. Prove me wrong.
Well, okay. Do you agree that the claim is unfounded then?
No.
Well, yeah, I mean, how do you justify that then?
Well, prove me wrong.
Yeah, and that's the point. That's what I'm saying.
So you
It's
can't
it's
do it
shifting.
then.
No, no, that's not what I said. I'm saying you're
It's
you're
it's
you're
not a,
starting off
it's
with
not a
shifting
burden
the burden of
shift.
proof.
It's my initial claim. My initial claim is prove me wrong, and I don't think you can do it.
Right. So if I said you don't have $100 in your pocket, prove me wrong. Like, do I have? Is that a justified belief for me to have to begin with? That you don't have $100 in your pocket?
Well, it depends on how rare that circumstance would be, right? So, for example, if you were someone that would have no access to $100, then I would say that's a pretty justifiable claim. If but $100 is actually pretty quite easy to get a hold of. Now, if you said if I said you don't have 15 pounds of gold in your pocket, I think that would be a claim that requires a whole lot less burden shifting to get around. But you're actually proving my point for me. So the whole time you've been up here, what you've done is you've suggested that you can't actually prove your God outside of your imagination, which, as far as I can tell, just reinforces what I say. Now, that being said, there's lots of good reasons to believe that your God doesn't exist.
Okay, but again, even that conclusion is unwarranted. You're
No, it's not.
assuming because we haven't got to that conclusion yet that I can't do it.
Well, prove me wrong
Like, how
then.
do you? Well, do you understand that's a non
Well, if
sequitur?
you can do it, maybe you should do it.
Okay, do you agree that that's a non
Well,
sequitur
let me
then?
ask you a question. No, I don't agree. Can you demonstrate that your God exists outside of your imagination?
Okay, if it's not a non sequitur,
It's
what are your
just a it's
premises that
just a
lead
yes
to
or
the
no.
conclusion? Yeah, what are your
It's
premises
just a
that
yes
lead
or no,
to
Ozzy.
the
Can you
conclusion?
demonstrate that your God exists beyond your imagination?
Okay, what are your premises that lead to the
Listen, you can
conclusion
burden
that I
shift all
cannot
day
demonstrate?
long. I talk to apologists way better than you. I'm not going to let you burden shift all night. Answer yes
Your
or no. Are you
your prompt
capable of
claims
demonstrating your
that
God
shift
to
me the
exist
burden of proof.
outside of your imagination? It requires a yes, no, or I don't know.
Your prompt is the one that is making the
Okay,
burden of proof.
so you can't answer the question then? You're incapable?
Is that what you believe?
I'm asking you.
Okay, is that what you believe?
I'm asking you to answer the question. I'm
I
asking,
get it.
are you capable of demonstrating your God to exist or providing an argument for your God's existence outside of your imagination? Is that something you're capable of doing?
I am capable of doing that.
Okay,
What you're
thank you. That's
doing
all you
is
had to say is yes. The correct answer would have been yes. So that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the argument or the evidence that would demonstrate your God to exist outside of your imagination. Would you like to get on to that?
okay. Absolutely. As soon as you admit that your prompt is definitely burden and proof shifting.
It's actually not.
Okay, your God is imaginary. Prove me wrong. Your addition of prove me wrong is what makes it shifting the burden of proof.
No,
How do you?
it's not a shifting burden of proof if that's my starting point. My starting point is that you can't prove me wrong. A burden shift would be if I made a claim without any further any further structure after that. If I just said your God does not exist and that was it. And then you came in here and I said, well, prove me wrong, that would be a burden shift. This is the starting point, which means it's not a burden shift. It's a starting point for the burden. So you can cry all you want that you can't demonstrate your God to be real, but our starting point is that you can't prove me wrong, and you're demonstrating that you're afraid to do it.
But it doesn't say you can't prove me wrong. It says prove me wrong.
Prove me wrong.
So if you're making the claim,
are you going to give me an argument or not?
Do you agree that the person making the claim has the burden of proof? Yes or no?
It depends on the form of the argument, right? So if we're having like an actual philosophical argument, then all claims, the burden of proof is on the person making the claim. I'm making two statements here. One is that your God is imaginary, which I can defend. The other is that you can't demonstrate otherwise. And you will never be able to demonstrate that, which is why you're terrified of doing it.
Okay, well, start with proving the first one. Your God is imaginary. Prove my God is imaginary.
Okay, so part of that is where we started, which is you can only imagine your God. You can't actually demonstrate your God to exist in real life. Part number two is that point number two, because you're terrified of doing it.
Okay, that's a non sequitur. How are you not embarrassed?
Then do it, Ozzy.
How are you not embarrassed for saying that? That's a non sequitur.
Then do it.
So I said, how do you prove my God is imaginary? And you said, because your God is only in your mind.
I said, that's only point number one. Trust me, I've got lots of reasons why your God is imaginary. We've just begun. So I just want to point out for the beginning of the conversation that you're unable and unwilling to defend your claim, which is that you can prove your God to not be imaginary. So I'll move on to point number two, which is the argument for why your God is imaginary. Your God is imaginary because he has contradictory traits.
Why are you moving on to point number two when we haven't proved point number one?
Point number two is for the original claim.
Why are you moving on to point number two if you haven't proved point number one?
Because point number one is the fact that you're unwilling to demonstrate the thing that you claim to be true. That's not what non sequitur means. Point number two in my argument.
Non sequitur means.
Point number two in my argument is.
What do you believe non sequitur means?
Point number two in my argument is defending the original claim, which is why your specific God doesn't actually exist. Would you like me to give you the argument for why your God doesn't exist?
We're not there yet.
We literally are there. You've been trying to, this entire time, you've been trying to get me to make a case for why your God does not exist, and we're finally there, and now you don't want me to do it. It sounds to me like you don't want to engage in a good faith dialogue no matter what. So let me, just so we're clear, point number one is that you're unable to defend your claim, which is that your God is demonstrable outside of your imagination. You're unable or unwilling to defend that claim. That was point number one, and you're demonstrating it to be true. So I moved on to point number two, since you're unwilling to engage in point number one. Point number two is, yes, I have lots of arguments for why your specific God is not real. Would you like to hear the arguments for that, or do you want to run away from that like a coward?
I would like you to prove point number one before moving on. Can you do that?
You proved point number one.
How did I prove that I don't have... how did I prove that God doesn't exist apart from my imagination?
Point number one is that you are unable to demonstrate God outside of your imagination. If you could do it, you would have just fucking done it already. If I could do it, I would have done it already. The fact of the matter is, You're not capable of doing it, which is why you won't do it, which is why I've moved on to point number 2, which is defending my main argument, which is why your specific God doesn't exist. Would you
Okay.
would you like to have an actual conversation on anything substantive, or do you want to dance around bullshit claims that you don't like the way I've structured my debate?
No, I don't care how you structure it.
Okay, so do you want to get onto something of substance?
Do you want to let me finish?
No,
Or you just want to
no,
You don't want to let me finish?
no, I don't. I want you
Oh,
to engage in a dialogue of
hey, if you're
substance.
afraid of having the conversation, kick me.
Nobody's afraid and nobody's kicking you. You're going to run like a coward like everyone else. So I want to have a dialogue on the actual substance. I want to stop having a stupid dialogue on you don't like the way I've structured my sentences or my argument. I want to have the dialogue. Would you like to have the dialogue about why your God does not exist? Is that something you would like to do?
Absolutely. Prove God doesn't exist.
You know, your specific God.
Yeah, the God of the Bible.
Fantastic. Is it your belief that the God of the Bible is all-knowing?
Okay, asking me a question isn't proving that God doesn't exist. Prove to me God doesn't
I
exist.
have to know exactly what you believe about God before I can take the argument against your God. So, do you believe, according to your reading of the scriptures, that God is all-knowing?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe, according to your reading of the scriptures, that God is all-powerful?
God is God can do anything logically possible. I wouldn't say all powerful.
Do you believe,
God
according to
can-
your reading of the scriptures, that God is all good?
God is perfectly moral. Yes.
Fair enough. Do you think he's perfectly just?
Yes.
Okay. And according to your reading of the Bible, if the Bible says things that are untrue, what would that say about your God? Like, it's a hypothetical, keep in mind. If the Bible said things that were not true, what would that mean for your God?
Well, what do you mean by not true? Because there's things in the Bible that people have said in the Bible that were not true, like quotes of things that are not true.
If God or Jesus or the author of the gospel says something that is just flatly not true, what does that mean for you in your theology?
Well, it would depend on the claim itself. Like,
So if Jesus says something that's not true, you don't know what that means?
Well, I don't know that Jesus ever said anything that was not true. I believe everything Jesus said is true.
Let me start from the beginning. Do you believe the Bible's inerrant? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, that's all I needed. Okay, so let's get on to the actual arguments. So, for example, this idea that God, actually, let me clear up one other thing. Do you think that your God exists outside of space and time and whatnot?
God exists ubiquitously.
Outside of space and time?
That's ubiquitous, right?
Well, not necessarily. Ubiquitous just means it's everywhere.
Right, everywhere.
Yeah, I'm talking about outside of space and time.
God exists everywhere that's possible for God to exist.
Okay, you can avoid the question. We know what you mean. So anyways, so argument number 1 then against your God is that your God is not all good. You want to hear the argument?
I do.
Okay. Can an all good God cause unnecessary suffering?
Well, you're getting into some very subjective terms now. First of all, what do you define as good?
I've defined good as not containing unnecessary suffering. Can you give me an example where unnecessary suffering is ever good?
Hold on. Give me your definition of good again.
My definition of good excludes unnecessary suffering. Does your definition of good include unnecessary suffering?
Why does your
It's crazy that you can't actually answer my question, Ozzy. I'm asking you a simple question. Can you be all good while causing unnecessary suffering? And you're trying to give me a politician's answer. What I need is a yes or a no.
No. How did you reach the conclusion that your definition of good is objective? You can keep saying I'm avoiding the questions. I'm answering the questions. You don't like my follow-ups,
I told you my definition of good excludes unnecessary suffering, which is why I'm asking you to clarify your definition of good. Does your definition of good include or exclude unnecessary suffering? Because it might be that we have different ideas of what good means. So Please tell me, does your definition of good include or exclude unnecessary suffering?
Okay, my definition of good is not my definition of good. Okay,
I don't
the
care
definition. Of good,
whose it is. Give me the definition you're working with.
okay, everything that correlates to the perfect moral nature of God is what is good.
Yeah,
Everything that does
but
not
does it
is not.
include unnecessary suffering? That was the question.
If there is unnecessary suffering that exists, it's not because of God. It would not be from God.
My question is, can somebody be all good while causing unnecessary suffering? I'm not giving you the argument yet. I'm asking you a question.
Okay, repeat it one more time because I just want to make sure I'm answering the right question.
Can somebody be all good and then also cause unnecessary suffering?
No.
Thank you. That's all. Listen, you wasted 5 minutes on that. All you had to say was no 5 minutes ago. Okay, so we both agree that part of being all good means that you don't cause unnecessary suffering. Now, let's get on to the actual argument of natural evil. So, in your interpretation, then, why do we have natural disasters that cause what I would classify as unnatural or unnecessary natural suffering?
Okay, but you agree that's subjective, right?
Listen, everything's subjective. We design what words mean.
Okay, is that statement subjective? Everything is subjective?
All things that are in the English language are subjective because we've determined what the words mean, which means it is by definition subjective. So I'm asking you, in your worldview, what is the explanation? Ozzy, listen, I'm not going to let you dodge every single question. You can cry all you want about not wanting to answer the question, but I will ask you the same question 500 times until you actually answer it. You're not going to be a coward here. Listen, I know you're cowardly. I know you don't have any actually Holy Spirit power because you're a coward. So it's just
your statements challenged. Go ahead and kick me.
It wasn't a statement, asshole. It was a question. I'm asking you, do you have an explanation for natural disasters? It's not a statement. It is a question that you've dodged. Do you have an answer for it?
Okay, so when you say natural disasters are unnecessarily harmful or causing unnecessary harm, I'm asking you, is that objectively true?
It doesn't matter if it's objectively true. I'm asking you, do you believe that there's an explanation for the natural disasters, and do you think they're necessary?
Okay, so do you believe there is objective truth?
I'm asking you the question. You're going to answer it or ask you 100 times till you do. Do you believe that natural disasters are necessary?
You believe truth is objective.
You're not going to reframe every single question I ask you. Do you believe that natural disasters are necessary?
You don't want
Listen, you can be a coward all you want. It's not a statement, it's a question. You're not challenging my statement. You're running from my question. My question was really easy. Do you believe that natural disasters cause unnecessary suffering?
You just don't want your statements challenged?
I want you to answer my questions. You're not challenging my statement. I haven't made a statement yet. You haven't heard it. You haven't made an argument against my statement. You're running from my question. Just answer the question. Do you believe that natural disasters are necessary or unnecessary?
If you are so confident in your position,
I'm confident that you're too cowardly to actually engage in dialogue. So answer the question. Do you believe that natural disasters are necessary or unnecessary?
You have over 600 people listening to you. Why are you not confident?
Way more than 600. I've got about 2,500 people watching this between YouTube and TikTok, and they're watching you desperately avoid answering any question possible. So back at the bar, the question is again, do you believe that natural disasters are necessary?
If you are so confident in your position.
So I'll ask you for the last time since you're too much of a coward. I'm not going to ask you again. Will you answer my question about natural disasters being necessary or unnecessary?
If you are so confident
so you're
in your
not.
Position.
Okay. Well, thank you for letting us know that you have nothing to offer. You're welcome to come back when you're ready to have an actual adult conversation. It's clear that you're not prepared for that.